Good morning and welcome to another the neXup podcast. I am your host, PC747, and I started this podcast back in March. And this is pretty much geared towards mainly Android talk, but I like to venture outside of that. I will cover things related to Apple news, cord cutting, and anything going on with technology that is considered important or something that is going to affect what we do in our daily lives. I try to bring it in a form factor that, even though you may be new to tech, it makes sense. I do that because, well, when I first got into tech myself, I say tech, but really smartphone tech. When I first got the iPhone 3GS back in 2008, 2009, I was one of those people who picked it up, kind of new to tech for the first time as far as smart tech. I enjoy using it. When it came down to me running into issues, I felt kind of at times needing help, and I relied on my brother for a lot of that. And then as I started getting more into Android, particularly the Motorola Droid, for me, that led me down a path that will forever change kind of how I would view tech, how I would go about my day, and really embracing where we are at as far as the consumer tech, particularly smartphones. And that led me down this path where I'm at now, where not only do I have a blog where I talk about some of the latest Android news, but this podcast is dedicated to talking about that. And then doing it in a way that brings consumer tech in a way that makes sense to, well, as many people as I can make sense to. Basically, bringing sensible tech to sensible people. Now, this podcast, you'll be able to hear on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, and Android podcasts. Again, thank you for joining me this morning because we have a lot of stuff to talk about, particularly a lot that's going on with Google, and we're going to see some stuff change there, change the way that we view their software. We're also going to look at some of the latest in Pixel talk. I am a big fan of Google's Pixel phones. I've been critical of them in the past and still have no problem being critical of them if it's not of the par or of the speed of to where it needs to be. As far as what is out there and what are they putting out there as far as being a flagship phone in the smartphone market. But some of the video that came out, which I'm going to talk about, it may have me excited. And is this excitement warranted, or am I getting hyped up too soon? Lastly, we're going to talk about this 5G. A lot of talking and news about 5G is out there. And I wanted to talk about whether it is really safe, or did the FCC roll over just so they can get 5G out there on the market. Thank you yet again for joining me. And again, you can find my content on us everywhere that I've set up earlier, as well as anytime you have any questions or any topics you'd like me to bring up, you can always hit me up at PC747 at neXup.net. Again, let's get started. So let's start talking about Android P. Back in actually Android Q, I'm on P right now. So Android Q, which is what we are on now, back in I'm gonna say April, we started seeing some betas get out there, and one of the things that we look forward to, us as Android fans, whenever a new beta come out there, or really a new Android build, is guessing the name of what we think this software will be. Since Cupcake, which is Android 1.5, one of the things that Google have done was take the name of their software and name it after a dessert. And the reason why they did that, it was a way for the engineering team to come up with a way to assign a name to a version of Android that they were working on. And they chose a dessert name. And all the way back since, again, I said 1.5, which is the first build to have that name of a dessert. Because 1. Or the very first version of Android was just alpha. The second was beta. And then once we started seeing these phones get these software, that's when we started seeing the names. So the first one, like I said, 1.5 was Cupcake. 1.6 was Donut. 2.0 and 2.1 was Eclair. 2.2 was Froyo. 2.3 was Gingerbread. 3.0 or 3.0 and above, Honeycomb. Now, this software was when Google first, or Android, decided to make a tablet-specific software. And when they did that, that's when they assigned the name Honeycomb. Now, the year after that, they decided to bring all their software back under one software. So they didn't want to continue to distinguish their tablets from their phones. And this was done on the 4.0 ice cream sandwich. 4.1 to 4.3 was Jelly Bean. 4.4 was Kit Kat. 5.0 and above was Lollipop. 6.0 was Marshmallow. 7.0 was Nougat. And the current version we're on right now, 8.0, correction, 8.0 is Oreo, and the current version we're on right now is 9.0, Pie. So these are the dessert names that were assigned to it. Now, what we're going to be seeing now is Google going to be getting away from that. Going from, start with Android Q, calling it Android 10. Now, what's new? What's something that you are going to be concerned about? Well, for one, they're going to change the logo. They're going to bring a little bit of the old school flavor, which is a little bit of new school rebranding. Particularly starting with the Android, they're going to modernize the text. Now, back when Android first started, I think a lot of you guys, you can Google it to see it. The name for Android, or the word that they use, Android, had a particular font that made itself kind of popular and to set themselves apart. And they took that font and modernized it for this year, or a decade of their software. So they're switching from a black font or a green font to a black, because black is more easier to see. They would be getting rid of the full Android robot body and just have the top half of the head with the eyes sticking up. And the reason why they're going away from the dessert names is because, for the simple fact that they said that a lot of desserts that they were choosing, and it makes sense for the American market, but as they started to become more globalized and more countries started to adopt Android, some of these desserts didn't translate well to them. One was because of a language barrier. They particularly were talking about how some of the L's and R's were confusing to them. And then a dessert for one country may not quite be a dessert for another. And then there were some things that they said, well, they were treats, but they weren't quite desserts, like marshmallows. So they decided to say, all right, let's go ahead and go to a more standardized numbering system or way to identify our software. Now, I do understand why they're doing that. As they try to go to becoming a more global software, they have more countries adopting their software. It makes sense, but I gotta be honest with you. I look forward every year to trying to guess the name of the latest software. And it was something that, as Android fans, we look forward to taking a shot at it. And really, as we look at a decade or 10 years for me, of Android, I want to look back at some of my favorite Android versions. And I want to start with 2.1 Eclair. And the reason why, for me, that was one of the software versions that was very exciting to me. Well, for one, it was the first time I saw just the community of Google fans or Android fans just get excited about the software. Being a member of Droid forums at the time, I watched just a community spend hours just going through page after page after page because there was rumor that 2.1 will finally be dropped. And why this was important? Well, at the time, the Motorola Droid was currently running 2.0, and the Nexus One, which came out, they had 2.1, was brought with it a bunch of software features, particularly the fact that you could use live wallpapers. Now, the funny thing is now, for a lot of people, we could care less about live wallpaper. In fact, when live wallpaper finally became a thing what people can use, a lot of people stopped using it because it was resource intensive. And even now, we got software to the point where it can obviously handle it. It's like, okay, for the time, it was cool to have. It was a way to make the phone feel a little bit more on par with some of the things we had on our computers. So and it was something different. So everybody wanted to do something or have that thing that was not available on everybody's phone. And it was only available on the Nexus One. And people like, hey, they got it over there. I want it over here. And there was just so much excitement for fans as we went from from Donut to Eclair 2.1. So, correction, 2.0 Eclair to 2.1 Eclair. So, a lot of us was excited. There were a lot of fans jumping on board. I was excited because the community was excited. And, for me, that was the first time I got into ROMing with Droid mod or Shows Mod Updater. It was the first time I got it on my phone, got a chance to try ROM, and with the custom ROMs it brought for me. And by the way, custom ROMs were custom software that was built by a lot of really just Android fans in general. You could go onto Google's website and download their source code, which is still available today, and you can create your own custom software. And by creating your own custom software, you can make the tweaks you want to make some changes you want to take or make, and you're able to distribute those to other people who want to try it. And it was hosted on a number of sites. XDA was one of the places you can get it. Droid forums, and there was just a number of places you can go. Droid Life, there were just Android Police, Android Forum, I believe, had it. Fandroid. So there were a number of places that hosted these custom ROMs and allowed fans to really get a glimpse of what their phone was really able to do. So for me, when I jumped on board these ROMs and got a taste of loud wallpapers, of people making modifications to the notification bar to change it from the boring gray or white looking notification bar I had there to more of a smoke glass theme or any theme that what I felt was enjoyable to use. But as we continue on going down for my favorite software, the second favorite one for me would be 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich. Now, this software debuted on the Galaxy Nexus. And for me, I was excited about the Galaxy Nexus. Seeing the commercial, it was the first Nexus phones to be available on Verizon after rumors and speculation that Verizon was supposed to get their version of the Nexus One, and it never panned out. It ended up becoming the Droid Incredible or HTC Incredible, and fans were so itching for finally get a Nexus phone on Verizon. There was so much hype about it. And then you saw the software that was coming from it. You had Google Wallet, which brought one of the first pay systems to a phone. And Apple Pay get a lot of credit for being one of the first pay systems, it was really Google Wallet was first. And then you have Face ID, which, again, use your face to unlock the phone, something that we see on more phones now today. And all that was debuted back in Ice Cream Sandwich. So for me, being a fan of finally getting a chance of getting a Nexus phone, a phone that can be rooted, that wouldn't be touched by Verizon, I was really hyped up about the software and couldn't wait to use Google Wallet. Now the problem was when you got the Galaxy Nexus, because it was Verizon was interfering with the phone and wouldn't allow you to use Google Wallet at first. So you had to backdoor it on there. And once you got a backdoor on there, you got a chance to use it, and you got to see where the capabilities of pay was going to go. At first, there were some places that it made sense to you, other places it didn't quite work too well. For the simple fact that when Google Wallet came onto the scene, there weren't a lot of places you could use it because they didn't have NFC payment system there. And those that did have NFC payment systems, you could see the technology was still new, as it took just as long to pay for the phone with your phone than it would pull out your wallet and just pay with a card, because you had to get your NFC chip on your phone at the right spot above the pay, or above on a pad where it can actually pick up the cents and actually pay for it. So it was a challenge early on, but it was exciting to see, the early stages of it and see it go on from there. And then 4.1, Jelly Bean. And the reason why for me that was exciting, because as nice as the Galaxy Nexus was, it suffered from being, well, janky and laggy. And this is one of the issues that we've always had with Google for a while. And it's like, as much as I'm a fan of it, we had to admit that the iOS, iPhone, there was a difference between one and the other. And iPhones were smooth there, and Android still had ways to go. Now, a lot of people say, well, Android's still new in the game, still has some catching up to do. And with Jelly Bean, this is the first time we saw Google really address these issues. And we finally started seeing a smoother Android experience. It felt faster. It felt like, finally, here we are. We have a phone that feels like we are really addressing these problems. And it made a big difference for a lot of people using that phone. And it was really something worth talking about, as far as bragging about, here we are, Android finally where it needs to be. And then we get down to Marshmallow. Now, for me, the reason why this was a favorite software for me, I felt like it finally brought all the pieces together. We started to see a smoother Android experience overall. The look was finally there, with material design finally developing to where they were trying to get it to. We started to see the Play Store get much better, and we started to see more tweaks. We started to see more innovations around the software. We got a phone that showed off the capabilities with the Nexus 6, and it really, for me, showed us that we finally got a phone that can really compete with iPhone. Or actually, we really got a software that could finally compete with the iOS software. And yeah, I feel like, all right, we're finally on the map with Google, and going forward, I couldn't wait to see where we continue to go. And really, over the years, Android has evolved a lot. And it went from being this software that the Play Store was considered a mess, the Wild Wild West, the place where full of potential spyware and viruses and all the things that people were concerned about there. You didn't have any legit software at the time or legit apps. For a while, ESPN wasn't available on the Play Store. You had the third-party ESPN app, as well as a lot of third-party rip-off apps that people were critical of, that you emulated that of the big boys, but it wasn't quite there. And here we are now, a decade later, and the Android Play Store, or the Google Play Store, is thriving, rivaling that of the iOS software and their Play Store. And it's really giving Android fans something to write home about, something to be excited about, and every year, something to look forward to, as we continue to see Google continue to evolve their software in a way that makes sense. Now, I'm still critical in some areas that I would like to see them improve on with their software. There are still areas where, when you look at some of what the other manufacturers are doing, particularly with Samsung doing with their software, you'll realize how far behind Android in some places is still lacking, still find themselves being. And it is highlighted when you see a lot of your Pixel phones, which it's supposed to be the poster child for Google, what flagship software on their phone, pure Android, is supposed to look like. And when you look at it, it looks boring. And as much as a lot of us fans are against or complaint of fragmentation for those wondering what's fragmentation, well, fragmentation is basically what you see on one phone where you have one software, another software. For example, go to Best Buy. Look at all the Android phones out there. Go to settings and about phone and look at the Android version it's on. You'll see some is on, the latest Android Q. Or I'm sorry, an Android P. Some is on Android Oreo. You may have some that's all the way back as far as Android 7.0, you know. So they're not all on the same software. As opposed if you go to an iPhone or to the Apple section or in Best Buy, and check this software out. And you see all of them on the same software. And this is what a lot of people have been critical of Android for. The simple fact that you can pick up a phone and they're all not on the same software. Obviously, your cheaper phones are going to not want to update their software. So it's nothing to see a phone still running 6.0 Marshmallow, a software that is way too old, or way too far back. And yet, this phone is selling to people who need a cheap phone. And a lot of people who don't understand about software, so all they see is Android and pick it up. This is fragmentation, the bad side of it. But then there's also some good sides of fragmentation. And for me, one of what I think makes the Android smartphone stand out better than what is able to be done with their watch and the tablets. Well, to be fair, their tablets do suffer from fragmentation too. So from their watches and even their Chromebooks, as much as I love Chromebooks, is that when you open up their software to allow manufacturers to be able to create on, to develop on, and put their spin on, they're able to separate themselves from another phone. So when you pick up a Samsung phone, it looks different from an LG phone, from a OnePlus phone, and from a Google Pixel phone, where they almost feel like they're different phones. Even if they are running the same software, when you look at the look, the interface is different, their icons are different. Sometimes the way their settings look is different. And yes, for me, I like that it do give some form of flavor, as well as introduce other ideas into the Android ecosystem of where the software can go and how it could look. Because if we were to rely only on Google for their software innovation, which they've come a long way as far as the look and some of the things they put out there, they still are behind in some areas. And, one that I've been very critical of is just theme engines. As much as people may not put that as a top thing for them, when you have phones getting more expensive and people keeping it longer, they're going to want to be able to find a way to easily change things over simpler, in an easier way. And theme engines make that possible. You have that available on Samsung's phones. HTC have it. I believe LG have it on theirs as well. So the simple fact that Google still does not have some form of theme engine is something that needs to change. And their so-called version of what they're trying to put out there as a theme engine on Android Q, it's really just behind the times. OnePlus did that a year or two ago. And I mean, it makes sense why they have it, make it available, and like what they did with it. But it's long been overdue for Android to have some form of a theme engine that's it's simple for everyday people to use. So yeah, that's why I say for fragmentation, as much as it's critical, I feel like it really gave a spark to what Android's at. And yeah, I've been critical again of Android for a lot of things. But we continue to see it continue to evolve in a way that makes sense in some areas. They really push the boundaries, improve, and continue to grow to make it not only on par with iOS, but in some areas, surpassing it. And when you think about where it was a decade ago, it wasn't even close. There were a lot of things that were just missing. Touch to zoom. Just the little things that people said that this is what made the iPhone better. Yet a decade later, we're seeing the software that finally grew up. And this is a software that we're going to see coming to the Pixel 4 as a video of it made its way to YouTube by Wakar Khan. And in the YouTube channel, it pretty much showed almost everything about the phone. And, it was more video. It was not any audio to it other than just music playing in the background. And it showed the phone from every angle with a screen display on. And looking at it, I have to say, as much as I was critical of, or have seen some critics of the bezel, and even myself saying that I would like to have seen it go more full glass, similar to what we're starting to see with Samsung and with OnePlus. Looking at it from that video, if it end up coming out and being the way that it's shown on there, I'm okay with it. I really am. I feel like, it's to get an idea of what you're going to see on it. Take a look at LG's latest G8 ThinQ. Take that and take away the notch. Just put that big, instead of having a notch, the entire top part of where the notch is at is pretty much technology. And when you look at it, I'm like, okay, consider what the technology they're going to be bringing in there. Bringing their Solar technology, which are going to use gestures, facial recognition software. It will have a 90 hertz refresh rate on the screen. We're going to get some more RAM, even though, I wish it was up to 8 gigabytes of RAM, to make the phone more able to last or become a 2-year phone. And as far as the bezel, like I said, the bezel and all the stuff that was out there, as critical as I was about it, and I know a lot of the community was about it, finally looking at it, I'll say this. It's not bad at all. In fact, I would say this. I'm excited about the phone. I'm looking more and more forward to finally getting this phone. Now, I know I gotta be careful with my excitement, because for every Pixel phone I've been excited about, they've let me down. Particularly started with the Pixel 2. I just couldn't wait to pick it up, and really before, I want to say right before I picked it up, you started seeing rumors about the blue disc, the tint and all that stuff, the muted display, and yeah, it's like some of that excitement wore down. Now, overall, between the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 3, the Pixel 2 is a better phone, performance-wise. But, yes, I'm sitting there looking at this like, all right, as I would like to see Google finally get the Pixel right. And I'm hoping they do that with the Pixel 4. But there's a part of me that's kind of feeling like, don't get too excited, bro. They're going to let you down. They're going to make you think that they got it right, and they're not going to get it right. There's going to be something going on. Now, if they come out there, they have a small quality issue, which as much as Google cannot have that right now because of every phone that they released that had the Pixel branding have had quality issues. But if it's a small one, one that's simple, one that is able to fix and get a jump on real quick. And they're able to put out a phone that is really good. It's really able to feel as smooth as this software can make it. Is there anything on the market that can really touch it and compete with it? But they have a lot to compete against this year. OnePlus put out a very good phone there, 7 Pro. And I enjoy using that phone. It is my daily driver. But I'll admit, the one thing that keeps it from being the ultimate phone is the camera still. I still rely on my OnePlus 3 or 3XL for taking really critical pictures. If I'm going somewhere where I know I want to get some nice quality photos, I'm bringing the Pixel 3XL with me. Then you look at Samsung, what they did with the Galaxy S10 and the 10 Plus. Beautiful looking phone. Hole punch display. Not really bad. I mean, I can see it getting in the way, but people found ways to use software to have fun with that. Samsung really did a good job this year with that. The Note 10, well, the Note 10 Plus is a really awesome software or really awesome device. Expensive, but yes, you see what is out there on the market. The hardware put behind it. Phones coming out with almost up to 12 gigabytes of hardware. My OnePlus 7 Pro, 12 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabytes of internal storage, running the latest 855 Snapdragon processor, having one of the best displays on the market, all for slightly above $700, about $730, walking out the door. And you know when Google released their Pixel, it's going to be around that $900 to $1,000 price point because that's what the market is asking for Samsung and for Apple smartphone. So for them to put out a phone that's going to be that price, yeah, people are going to be critical of what is in their hardware and the software. And they need to have a really good release, a solid release. Because the market, the community, they're going to be asking questions. They're going to be very critical this year of them. Rightfully so. Because the market is saturated with a lot of good smartphones. Especially in the flagship area. But I really think they're going to bring something that is worth talking about. At least I hope so. I really do. I'm really hoping so right now, this year. Let's go ahead and move on. Talk about T-Mobile having a nationwide outage this past Wednesday. It was on from 6 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. It affected all calls and texts. It didn't really have any effect on mobile data. They was able to get it back up, but I'm pretty sure for a number of people out there, this was something that, frustrating, especially around that time period. You rely on your phone for reliability, and this do not help as far as T-Mobile with their reliability right now. I am a T-Mobile user. I personally wasn't affected by it because at the time, my current work schedule, I would sleep, so it didn't bother me. But a lot of people out there, those that work night shift, those that rely on their phone for business, they were inconvenienced, and hopefully T-Mobile make it right to them. And those that were inconvenienced, I know T-Mobile is one of the cheapest as far as carriers, but still, people are paying some good money for their technology, and when it doesn't work, you gotta do something to make it right. And hopefully they do to say, okay, look, for those that were affected by it, we're gonna credit you guys, $20-$30 this month. Just say thank you. They'll say we apologize. Thank you for sticking with us, and we'll get it right. And I believe they're going to, at least I hope they do, because they seem to be very customer oriented, and I hope they come out there and do that. And let's go ahead and talk about my big story for today, and that's talk about 5G. because it is pretty much everywhere you go is the topic of discussion. 5G technology, and a lot of people are trying to figure out what is this 5G, how long it's going to take to get it, how much. There's so many questions of it, as well as the safety of it. And what brought about this were two things I saw this week. One, I saw the FCC finally ruled that 5G was safe. And this is coming on the heels of the simple fact that before that, there were a number of people coming out saying that 5G had some health issues. In particular, I go to this one site that pretty much there were a number of professors that came out and said that they felt that 5G could pose some safety concerns, particular that relating to cancer. And scientists wanted to have more time to look at it and see what the effects would be on the human body. You have the city of McKinney, and I got this from a community impact for that city. They're asking for an independent study to look to see if there is really any health concerns or any health issues to be worried about with 5G technology. Now, why is this a big deal about the health? Well, because a couple of people have brought up that with 5G, the current concern was that simple fact that, well, the way that 5G works is using high frequency, very high frequency bands, right around 2.4 gigabytes or gigahertz up to 50. That's going to be used on the daily. And I got that from Ericsson. And it goes above as 100. Now, with this high frequency or high frequency bandwidth, the concern with people or that people have is how would it affect people in general. Now, the argument to that has been on the other side. I read one article from the New York Times that questioned or brought out how it actually came up, saying that Bill Curry, a physicist, had reported on it being unsafe, and that people jumped on it and got concerned about this being something to worry about, when the reality is they think that our skin is going to protect us from those high frequency waves. And one example of that people have been bringing out, that when you look at your Wi-Fi routers, it's running around that same frequency. And people have been running these routers for years, and so far we have yet to see any real complaints or any studies showing the Wi-Fi routers have resulted in people on increasing cancer clusters. At least not one that is so alarming that it's making its way to news and Twitter and all these other places. So what a lot of people are saying is that these concerns about, or the health concerns that people are bringing up, is concerns that are not validated. And you have people on both sides of it saying that, okay, look, those that are worried about the safety of it saying, look, you guys are so much in a rush to bring out this 5G that you're going to kill and bury any safety reports that are put out there anyway. If scientists come out there and say, I have found clusters in rats, you're going to ignore it. You're going to bury it. You're going to disprove them. You're going to have your own scientists just make the argument saying that they're wrong, hushing it, because there's just so much money in 5G right now. There is so much riding on it. You have the president talking about 5G. Everyone realizes how important 5G is, and no one wants to slow this down. They want to hurry up and get this going. But let's explain why there are so many concerns about health and issues. By starting about the issues that come with introducing 5G. For one, waves are so short and limited. You have to have pretty much a node or router or some form of machine. I ain't say machine, but some type of box almost everywhere, which means literally every stop sign and light pole will have some type of node that will allow 5G to be able to be introduced. Why is this a concern? Well, you're going to have a lot of router. You're literally going to have, everywhere you go, there's going to be a router. And that's just for one carrier. You got to remember, we're going to have 3 carriers, well, more than that, running 5G towers here. Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, they're all going to want to have their own 5G towers running around here. So on top of LTE, you're going to have a telephone poles lit up with 5G nodes. Same thing with light poles. Especially when you go to your big cities where you're going to have these nodes almost everywhere to be able to support the people out there. So that means you're going to have a city littered with nodes. And that's what people on the other side that are concerned about the safety are bringing up. Yes, it's one thing to have one Wi-Fi router in your house. It's another thing to have a whole city of Wi-Fi routers all over the place, everywhere you go, in the countryside, in the woods, at every tree, because you need, quote, 5G. Because the range is so limited. It don't take much to disrupt it. A tree, clouds, rain. Anything blocking its signal will cause you not to have 5G, a 5G signal. As fast as it is, as much as it brings a way for you to download movies fast on the go, it do have some limitations. As far as battery right now, you're going to see some of the same issues we saw when we first came to LTE, where we got to improve the battery life. Because running on 5G, your phone is going to get really hot quick. And if your phone gets hot, it's going to have battery drain. And how long that battery is going to last is going to be not as long as your LTE version. So that means with a city full of towers all over the place, slow upload speeds. Because as far as 5G is concerned, it's really good with the download speeds, but upload speed is still something that needs to be worked on. You're going to have to wonder, how are we going to figure this out? Now, for those I want to speak to both sides here that are concerned, let's go back to those that are concerned about their health. I understand their concerns. I understand their distrust of the government, especially with how the FCC pretty much rolled over on net neutrality. So they may feel like, okay, this same government rolled over for net neutrality for the businesses. What's to keep them from rolling over to make sure 5G get out there? Telling everybody it's safe, overlooking the scientific evidence. Especially when we saw reports coming out there saying that one of the concerns with 5G is how it could affect weather radar. And how it may impact the way we are able to get information to people to prepare for big storms because of all these high frequency radio waves in the air interfering with that. Those are concerns that people have. And as much as we're wanting to get out there with this technology, and I'm someone who talked about it in past podcasts, I'm excited about 5G, the potential there. And one area I do have to double back on my excitement. I said that it would be able to compete with broadband, and not quite yet, I realize, because with broadband cable, you're still going to have the consistency of being able to have high-speed internet for both download and upload speeds. And consistency is going to be a big thing, especially when you want to use it to play games and stuff like that. So they're going to always have an area where until 5G can catch up there, they're going to be ahead. And as far as rolling this out, it's going to be expensive. Getting it out to every city, all over these places, getting all these nodes, getting all these things constructed, it's going to cost a lot of money. And the question is, who's going to take on that burden? Is it going to be the taxpayers? Or is it going to be the customers who sign up for 5G? And I think it's going to be a little bit of both. As I'm pretty sure with the government pushing to help we get 5G out there, they're going to be giving tax breaks to a lot of these carriers to get it out there. And as a result, you're going to see some of that burden on your taxes, I think. And plus, you as a customer are going to see the price of your cell phone bill rise even more. You take into account with the fact that smartphones have already gotten to a point where we had $1,000 plus. Really, we're starting to reach $1,500 to $2,000 now. You add to that a even more expensive cell phone bill. Yes, those who are going to be on 5G, at least for I say the next 2 or 3 years, going to be those that have the money to be able to afford the high-priced smartphones and the expensive carriers. Until we're able to get more of these towers out there and able to get the price down to where your average Joe can afford it. And that's going to happen when you start seeing companies like Metro PCS, Boost Mobile, and some of your cheaper carriers start being able to adopt 5G. But it's going to take a while because, again, we have to roll these out everywhere. We got to get these cities up to speed and build up with these nodes. And we still don't know the answer completely of whether it's safe or not. We don't. I mean, I hope it is. And in a way, I see both sides of the arguments. I see those saying that, look, we got Wi-Fi routers in the house. We got Wi-Fi routers everywhere we go. When you go to your local store, restaurant now, they got a Wi-Fi router. That's what way they're able to give you free Wi-Fi access. We had that for over a decade now. People are fine. So why should we be concerned about a node on basically a Wi-Fi router on every traffic light, on every telephone pole, on every light pole, on trees? Why should we be concerned about that? But then I see the other side that says, well, you can have too much of something. Where you may have had one router, yes, but you had some distance between another router. What happens when you have a router literally everywhere you go? Every light pole, or every light pole, every traffic light. Do we really think that's not going to have an effect on the human body? Do we really think that's not going to cause some type of malicious or cancer cells? And there's a lot that we are going to have to continue to dive into and the question we're going to have to continue to ask. As both sides are not trusting some of the reports that are coming out there. Blaming one for trying to hold up progress or the other for being so much of a rush to make money that they're willing to overlook the harm that they are going to be doing to their citizens. I know for me, I'm very excited about 5G. I'm aware of what it can bring. Seeing what LTE brought to the market and how it changed how we go about our day. The businesses it sparked. The opportunity it opened. The changes it made to our economy, to the industry, to a number of industries. Now I can, go out to an airplane and be able to work on it on the go with a tablet. Being able to pull my maintenance manuals from a tablet, from a server, because of LTE. It's allowing us to get information on the go everywhere we go. You have a question about something, and in an instant you can pull it up. You're someone who's always on the go, you are able to keep up with your videos on the time you have, lunch break. There's just so much 5G have done, or LTE have done to really change where we at with technology. And as we get to the 5th generation, because that's what 5G is, 5th generation of wireless technology. Other countries are adopting it. It's clear that we, being American, being proud, being wanting to be ahead of innovation, ahead of technology, one of the top dogs in the industry, one of the leaders, we don't want to lag behind our competition. We don't want to be too slow. We don't want to be last to it. We want to be one of the first to it. Because that's the American way. And I get it. I really do. I look forward to it. I wanted the technology to be out right now. I want the technology to be at the level that we have LTE now, where the phones are able to handle it. We're not seeing poor battery life, but days of battery life on a 5G signal. We're able to consume media in a whole different way. Being able to enjoy really 4K movies on the go, 4K videos on the go. Not having to download it in the background, but able to watch it on the go. To watch a football game in 4K on the go. That is what or the error that we coming upon. But as we rush to get to that era, as we strive to make that a reality, let's make sure we do so in a way that it is beneficial for all Americans. We're not allowing ourselves to get to a point where we're saying we're going to take our technology and make that so important that we overlook our regular citizens, everybody. Because in this instance, it will affect everyone. If we rush to 5G and it isn't right, we ignored the scientists that came out there and said, this is a problem, you may want to look into it, and we put ourselves in danger where we are able to predict storms and give people time to get out of the way. We're not able to do so, and now we're putting citizens at risk. We have a situation where, because we have all of these high frequency bands all over the place, kids are developing tumors. The rise of cancer cells or cancer clusters, especially in the big cities, going up. That's a concern that a lot of people do, or people on the other side have. I don't think it's something them saying that they don't want 5G technology. I don't think it's them saying, you know what, we're okay with LTE, we don't need to continue to evolve. I think it's more of, let's make sure that we do allow an independent study. We do start digging into it. And if it is a safety concern, we find ways to make it safer. Instead of being in a rush to rush it out there, we're first, and then we find out, oh, this is a problem, and now we got to double back and find a way to fix it. Yeah. Let's take the time to figure out ways where we can put it out there in a way that it's beneficial for all, but also safe. Because at the end of the day, when people walk outside, they want to be able to smell fresh air, enjoy nature, enjoy the environment, and not have the environment be the thing killing them. Especially something because we done as a result of wanting to improve technology. But yeah, I'm excited about 5G. I'm going to the 5G conference in Los Angeles in the middle of October. You know, there will be some questions I want answered, and I hope to have them answered there. For all of you out there that are excited about 5G or don't know what it is, you know, stay tuned. We'll continue to just hash out more about what to expect with this technology. There are a lot of channels out there that's talking about it. This is a hot topic. Anyway, thank you again, guys, for joining me for the neXup podcast. Have a good weekend. And remember, you can catch this on podcasts, or this podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Android Podcasts, and SoundCloud, if I haven't said that already. Leave your comments below or send a comment to pc747@thenexup.net. If you have any questions, you can also hit me up on Twitter at PC747DF. And as always, thank you again for joining me. Hopefully you have a good weekend as we approach the fall and you start to see a lot of the technology, get out there. We start to see more of these phones. We get to see the iPhone get out there, Pixel phone, OnePlus putting out their TV, and seeing what they may be able to do. Are they going to be able to do something and disrupt the market the way they're doing with the smartphones? Bringing a high quality TV to the market at a competitive price. What we're going to see out of the iPhone is the iPhone 11R, iPhone 11 Max, iPhone 11. Is it going to be a phone that Apple fans jump on, excited about, or is it going to be a dud for Apple? The Note, is the Note going to really be a phone that everyone jump on board, or is this going to be the one year that the Note finds itself looking up to the competition? And will Google finally get the Pixel right? Will the Pixel 4 finally be the phone that cement them as the premier company to get a smartphone from? Will they finally get it right with them having current class action lawsuits for the 5X, the Nexus 6P, and the Pixel? Will they be able to shed all that scrutiny to make sure they bring to the market a smartphone that fans can not only get excited about, but want to buy? To all these questions and more, tune in to the next up. I'm out.